Welcome back to the grand final of the Open Division at the 2021 New Zealand Ultimate Championships here at Puna in Christchurch. Brought to you by skysportnext and We Are Canterbury, as we see Auckland's Groot facing off against the Wellington Wildcats. As always, my name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kelsey Bielik.
And we have a great day for you here today.
The sun has come up, which is really exciting. It was a bit overcast earlier. We're nervous about rain potentially coming through later on, but for the moment, the sun is streaming down, and it is a great place and set up to play Ultimate Frisbee. We've got a northerly coming down at 20 kilometers per hour.
So a little bit faster than we've seen over the last couple of games. But first up, we have Groot hailing from Auckland with their coach, Warren Buckingham. Captains, Ben Waller and James Crosby. Warren Buckingham again to play Luke Humphreys, Troy Stevenson, Rue and Jordan Tan, Tim Meyer-Smith, Ryan Smith, Jack Doherty Eagles, Campbell Jordan, Hamish Ford, Bruce Ing, Michael Jessup, Rory Moore, Connor Kiefter.
And for the Wildcats, we've got Lockie Robertson and Liam Haverfield as captains, with Josh Broughton, Aaron Neal, Mike Connolly, as well as other teammates. We see them all running onto the field now as the fans are cheering.
So the vast majority of the New Zealand Ultimate community has gathered here in Christchurch to cheer on these teams. We just had great coverage, a fantastic game as Nexus Affinity put a fantastic performance out over Auckland's Blueberries to take the Women's Championships. But here, playing out of the dark uniforms, the Wellington Wildcats, waving to us here in the commentary box as well.
Guys there, who are streaming over the live stream, recognizing the fans watching from near and afar. And we see the players in the field running, at least in Groot, they're hyping themselves up.
So bringing a lot of energy to this final. Both of these teams have worked incredibly hard to get here. They have actually faced each other already in pool play. Groot putting one over Wildcats to be the only undefeated team in the Open Division, 6-0. Every single one of their games has gone to 15 points. Wildcats, on the other hand, currently 6-1. Their only loss to Groot, every single other one of their games going all the way. Now, it's interesting to note as well, Wildcats typically conceding fewer points than Groot do. We're sort of seeing some middling scores and against the more competitive teams, 12s and 10s and whatnot.
Both teams incredibly well drilled. And I'm excited to see a close matchup today. They have matched up consistently in the past, seeing each other in the finals quite often. So it promises to be an exciting matchup today.
And again, a lot of these players know each other, not only from having seen each other at lead-up tournaments, but also from shared experiences through our nationals training squad, our national level teams. We've seen so many of these names playing in our showcase match that we had last night as the New Zealand Taniwha put one out over the New Zealand Barbarians.
And we're seeing Wildcats setting up on the line there with Aaron Neal, who will be pulling the disc downfield. What I'm really excited to see starting this match, though, is on the sideline, away from the screen, a bit closer to us. We've seen both teams walking past each other and shaking hands, wishing each other a good match, starting the game off with a high level of spirit.
So this, our final match, will be a game to 15. 90 minutes on the clock. Half-time to be taken as soon as the first team to score 8 points does so. But we'll address that as we come to it. We should expect some really long throws from confident handlers, some great big long options, and as well some small ball close quarters ultimate. The very best on display for you here today.
The first pull is pushed out of bounds. That's an upwind pull, which is a bit more difficult. Looks like Ben Waller from Groot will be bricking the disc to the center of the field as Wildcats sets up their defense. Appears to be a bit of a zone.
So again, the wind, it's kind of a bit gusty. It feels like it's coming from the right-hand side of your screen all the way over to the left.
Which means that Groot right now has a tailwind, pushing at their back, opening up space for Hucks. Interesting that we see their setup right now is a bit closer to the disc. I mean, with a player like Aaron Neal in the deep space on defense, it can be intimidating to make those deep looks. He's such a strong player in the air. But also, I mean, stretching the field could be quite advantageous, especially, again, when the wind's at your back, makes longer throws just a little bit easier.
Miller Mercer with his low release backhands, forcing the disc to go backwards. Groot trying to shift the mark. Great pressure on that defense from Tyler Hogg.
Absolutely. Also great to see the thrower there faking, just trying to move the mark in order to open up the throw that he wants to make. And we're seeing an assassin in this zone right here, with 2 people on the mark, trapping it downfield, and then the third marking the immediate swing. This doesn't seem to be phasing the Groot offense as they're managing to stay really chilly with the disc and find the open players. Regardless of the assassin, cleaned up there by Sticky. What?
And then, as soon as he releases the disc, the wind brings it back the other way. A great reversal of fortunes to keep the disc in Groot possession. Ben Waller looking to target the near sideline. Some quick give-and-go passes. Finds Liam Haberfield.
Oh, a bit of bodying. They find Stevenson. Really great to watch his zone. Oh, Groot is moving the disc in such a chilly way, finding the open player, and Sticky once again with the D there, just predicting where the disc is going to be and jumping onto it.
Neil there marked by Stevenson, manages to put one out to Yo on the far sideline.
And Stevenson and Neil are veterans. They go back to playing together. Oh, and Andy Neil manages to tow it inbounds.
Great work there. Great field awareness, great bodily awareness to keep that toe in the perimeter of the field. Despite the bid from Rutan.
Lachlan Robertson with a crossfield upwind hammer.
Nick Whitlock puts up the long bomb to Tyler Hogg. But the defense says, not today, the Dikembe Mutombo block. Not in my house. Ben Waller initiating with Miller Mercer in that backfield space. Joined by Troy Stevenson.
And interesting to see that while Groot's moving the disc here, while Wildcats are setting up some massive defense, there we see an athletic play by Yo.
There's the long shot up to Ben Waller. Who actually has to pick up a little bit of pace to pull that one down as Groot go one up over the Wildcats.
Flooding the field to celebrate that first point. What great energy. This is something I really like to see in Ultimate Frisbee. You know, points are points, but when you start off the game with a point like that and your teammates flood the field, it just brings everyone up so much more to celebrate that win.
And we'll see that one again. There's the shot. It's nice to see, particularly as we've seen Ben Waller in our showcase game, making things look so effortless as he picks up the speed to make sure he catches up with the disc. It's nice to see him have to try.
I love that. Yeah, we see him running, and what his quick jog is there would be many people's sprints, and he does have to turn up the gas a little bit just to power down so he doesn't have to lay his body out to catch the Frisbee, make it a safe catch into his hands.
So a great first point of the game. Groot, just great work going one up over Wildcats to come down on defense now.
Wildcats nonetheless with the experience to meet that. So we've got Wildcats coming out on offense, upwind. So they'll have plenty of opportunities to make similar beautiful swinging passes and potentially open up that deep space as well. Great banter on the sideline as the disc goes up.
Great pull. Not a lot of roll, so that gives Wildcats a bit of an advantage. Haberfield now with the disc.
And Groot's setting up in what looks to be a junkie defense.
Pete Hoban breaking ankles, putting his hands up saying, hey, I was open. Great work there.
Dan Aldridge, in the middle of the field, looking for the swing.
Finds Puna. Haberfield. Puna, great separation there, turning that into a deep cut. Aldridge just leaving the ground. Gravity needs to be turned back on for that man. Resets to Haberfield.
Beautiful under yards there on the open side.
And with Pete Hoban's speed, it's amazing how those undercuts don't gain as much ground as you might think just because his momentum carries him that much further downfield. A great shot over the top. Aldridge not able to get underneath it.
And the wind carried that, I think, a little bit farther than Haberfield would have liked. Or he may have thought he was throwing to himself. Haberfield, a massive target in the air, massive space around him. But Yeah, recognizing the way the wind can carry that disc just a little bit further is important, especially when you're throwing a disc that goes up so high up in the air like a hammer. It's a bit more susceptible to the whims of gusts than lower throws.
Absolutely.
So we're likely to see, for example, more low releases coming out here downfield as opposed to high popped backhands.
Great pull down there.
And reels the power position back in to throw small undercut. Groot making some great close passes, working the disc down the field. I love the energy that they're bringing out right now. So much power, decisiveness, and quickness in the way in which they're playing. Everyone's going for the disc.
Great recovery by Groot to keep possession.
And the speed at which they're moving the disc, I think, is resulting in bit of a knock there, everyone's jumping up just fine, is resulting in some swilly passes which led to that turnover, but also I think Wildcats were struggling a little bit to keep up with that speed, something that Groot is really putting out on the line. Absolutely.
Wildcats eager to put a point of their own on the board, not wanting to concede 2 back-to-back points to Groot. Mike Connolly, as the wind picks up, again we're seeing the impact that the wind has. Joe Puna-Smith receiving the disc on the far sideline. But it's one of those things, Kelsey, that I think is important. As the shot goes up, Aldrich took the double coverage, pulls it down, but it comes out of his hand.
A little bit of a slingshot there, I think, on the fingers.
Beautiful put, great read, but not able to pull that down and put a point on the board for the Wildcats.
Let's see that one more time.
Up, and yeah, just the spin on the disc, ripping it off his fingers. I think it would be a wonderful thing, like they always joke about having a normal person run the 100 meters in the Olympics, just to get a sense for how much faster those athletes are. If we could just have a couple of volunteers from the audience to throw a disc on the sideline, we'd be able to see the kind of conditions that these players are struggling with and still performing so well in.
Exactly. The clouds have blown over, the sun. And a massive bid from Panaya there. We're seeing some really physical play here. It's great to see that both teams are on the same page while they're bumping into each other and bodying up, that they're both very much okay with that level of play.
There is an agreement that despite Ultimate being a non-contact sport, these players are all at a level where they're probably okay with a little bit of physicality, and so we're not seeing any calls made at the moment. A reminder that Ultimate is self-officiated. There are no external arbiters. Each player on the field acts as their own referee to make calls, to understand the rules, and to apply them, and then be willing to have that discussion in the event that a call is made.
And one thing also important to note at the highest levels of Ultimate, as we're watching here, that while physicality is common and injuries are common, that it is relatively, it's safer, that the more you play Frisbee, the more you become aware of dangerous situations that you put your body in, dangerous places to jump up when something else might be happening, a person might be coming from a different direction. So these players are also all at a level.
What a great put through for Groot.
And once again, the players flood the field. Groot has some incredible energy. Also great to see Yo, as well as some Wildcats players with their hands up, also celebrating that point, adding some great spirit to that. Not needed, but a really beneficial upwind point to add onto the scoreboard for Groot at this point. As the wind has been picking up a little bit, it helps to have that break upwinds. It's really helpful to have in the back pocket, leading them into a downwind defensive point. If they can get the turn right away, it's a great place to be with the momentum moving forward on your front foot.
So a timeout has been called. And big thanks to the crowd who have joined us here at Ngā Puna Wai, doing a fantastic job supporting New Zealand Ultimate, really turning out, bringing the energy, shaking the stadium with their cheers for this final between Groot and Wildcat in the open division of the 2021 New Zealand Ultimate Championships. A timeout being called, both teams just taking the opportunity to have a little bit of a discussion as Groot go 2 points up. And as you pointed out, Kelsey, you're exactly right. They're coming down on defense now. With the wind at their backs, it's going to make things that much harder for the Wildcats offense to work upfield. If they do get the turn early on, they've got the throwers, they've got the speed to just basically let go of the disc and let the wind bring it downfield for them.
And I'm talking a lot about energy, especially on the field. Groot's really bringing it. They're showing aggression and that they want the disc no matter where it is. They're attacking it. But a lot of that, it's important to note, also comes from the sideline. We see active sidelines, players from both teams on both sides of the field, as well as, once again, just a shout out to the stands that many teammates, counterparts, club members, friends are up in the stands, and we're hearing a lot of energy coming from there, cheering on their respective, teammates, maybe throwing in an odd heckle or two. But it can really help lift you up as a player on the field. Last day in the finals, you've been training for this, but at the same time, you're a little bit tired, and feeling the crowd pick you up can really help. Neil catches the bounce.
Just great work there. Fielding that pull, starting off the Wildcats offense, even though they are working upfield. Groot sticking to a person defense, looking to isolate matchups. But again, Peter Hobart, you can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. And Whitlock sends the bomb up. The blue bomber, it looks like somebody came down with it.
It was a bit of a floaty throw. Just hung in the air for a second, led to some traffic underneath. But great to see a safe play made and everyone popping just right back up. Groot seemingly with just as much energy as if they'd scored the point, while Wildcats also really stoked to be on the board one more time. Haberfield looking at going over the top and just double checking it's safe in the hands of his teammate.
Great work there by Wildcats to put on the point that they needed as they go 2-1. Groot to come out on offense.
So another upwind point. Great to see that it isn't impacting the teams too much. We've got Neil with the disc expecting to pull, talking about matchups downfield.
Joined by Riley Van Turnhout and Andrew Fitzpatrick Cockram, who've made their presence known in the earlier men's semi-final that we had earlier today.
And one thing I love about Ultimate Frisbee in Aotearoa, as well as seeing these teams in the finals, is recognizing how many, as you mentioned again, Blair, how many of them have played together on various teams, Of course, Wildcats, Groot, they've been training the whole season for this, but at the same time, so many of them have played against each other and with each other at the World Championships on the world stage. Waller with the disc has played with many of the Wildcats players, and exciting, to be able to match up against them and show, hey, this is what my club team has been working on, and this is where we're at, and playing against them as well.
Troy Stevenson throws one out of bounds, picked up by Riley Van Turnhout to initiate the offense. A great break opportunity here for the Wildcats. Neil, far sideline, Fitzpatrick Cockram. The central surgeon.
And Stevenson with a massive mark there, just stopping all of those arounds.
Yo with the disc now. Pinned down by Mercer. Great score. Whitlock with a slash caught across the front corner of the end zone for a score for the Wildcats. Taking the game back to 2 apiece. We have ourselves a game on our hands.
Let's see that one more time. Straight to the front corner.
Pressured by Troy Stevenson.
And Stevenson is such a threatening player defensively in so many parts of the field. Yo looking, he's shaking his head no. Looking for the around and then notices Whitlock right there. And that is classic in Ultimate Frisbee. That front cone is such a dangerous place on the field when you're on defense. That they're going to score there. When you're on offense, it's a spot either of the cones, but especially those front cones there. It's a place you want to be attacking where most of the points will probably be happening.
Fantastic effort here by the Wildcats to claw back a 2-point deficit. Groot coming out strong, firing off 2 points on the board, answered by 2 points by the Wildcats themselves, a hold and then a subsequent break.
And a great shot there, just obviously in Ultimate Frisbee. Sportsmanship, athleticism, camaraderie, all really integral parts of the sport. Often looked aside as style and fashion, and Stevenson rocking the 2-side buns there, really, making sure that he's looking his best in the finals. I gotta give a shout out just to the importance of style on the field, and props to Stevenson for keeping that in mind.
And the contrast for that is his teammate number 37, Liam Haberfield, both of whom have played together on Marvelous DC. Liam Haberfield instead going for a single bun, tying up his characteristic golden mane to keep it underneath the hat in the wind, to keep it out of his face. Otherwise, in still conditions, deciding to rock the hair, hoping that it adds to his aerodynamic efficiency as he streaks downfield.
Now, I really like this zone that Wildcats have set up here. When you have such depth and such height on the team, you can place someone like Aaron Neal deep. He's so consistent in the air, able to read disc so well, and then take other three massive players. We've got around the disc, not just on the mark stopping the arounds, but also just, stopping any through movement. As a handler, when you have three massive people in front of you, just big players, it's much more difficult to try to sneak it through, find holes when the wingspan is stopping all of that.
Absolutely. But Troy Stevenson now going over the top
Cheeky
despite the wind. Ben Waller with a great hammer. Intercepted comfortably by Fitzpatrick Cockram.
And we've got Robertson with the disc.
Robertson, rather. Whitlock, far sideline.
Right now, Wildcats capitalizing on the break side of the field. Whitlock streaking deep.
Double coverage, hoping his height is enough, and it is. He pulls it down. Wildcats going up over the top of two of the Groot defenders again. Some of the strongest opens players in the country. But as we always say in Ultimate, you cannot teach tall.
And I love that Whitlock just looking, dishing, and then immediately going deep for his teammates. He wanted that disc in the end zone. Bids going up. Looks like Waller thought he could maybe get a bit higher.
And Stevenson even a giant in his own right, but not able to come down over the top of the mighty Whitlock, the blue bomber from the Wellington Wildcats. 3-2 now in favor of the Wellington team. A little greater than 70 minutes left in the game. Still a race to 15. We've played nearly 20 minutes of Ultimate. We're looking at about 4 minutes per point. That's a lot of time to be running up and down this field to maintain that mental focus on defense, to try and take in as much information as possible. And so after 3 full days of Ultimate, these teams, we're going to see which one has the deeper reserves, which one's able to pull through as they continue to trade points.
We've got Neal once again with the disc. Groot lined up, set for an upwind point. Again, bringing that energy, that tenacity. Wellington potentially looking at keeping their zone on, especially with such a strong, an upwind point that Groot is trying to score. Or they could be switching to person defense, where they'll be shutting down a few of those deep options and potentially looking at stopping that quick flow that Groot is getting off.
So great pull there by the Wildcats. Waller to initiate with Mercer, providing that support. Low release backhands with a little bit of bounce on them, trying to get them up into the hands of the receiver. The wind at the Wildcats' backs.
Mercer looking for that strike cut and stumbles just a little bit. Too much power into that acceleration.
A big wind-up. Van Turnhout doesn't take a bite of the fake.
And Wildcats right now with their defense really stopping a lot of the downfield movements. Interesting, in switching to their person defense, they're providing a few more challenges in stopping that flow that Groot's really been showing in the zone, just shredding their zone. We see Waller just grimacing, wanting to throw it, but seeing that cutter's not quite open enough to do that. We've got a call on the field.
An injury call. So Miller Mercer may have left his ankles behind on some of those great cuts. He's known for a lot of flexibility, a lot of movement, particularly as he holds the disc. He gets really, really low, gets really, really wide in his pivot. But also the great acceleration that he's able to quickly change directions might have been a little bit much for him after 3 days of Ultimate.
Also seeing that stumble just before, it could have maybe been exacerbated. We see Van Turnhout also taking a sub there from the Wildcats. And what's really great to see is also the players right now, group players are attacking the Frisbee. They're hungry for the disc. These cuts are 100% and they're attacking it as if the Wildcats are on their tails. Disc goes up.
Foul called. So we'll see that again. High disc. Yeah, it looks like there might have been some contact on that bid.
Great to see teammates, though, always ready to back up the Frisbee in that situation, laying the body on the line to really go 100% for the disc just in case it wasn't caught by your teammate up in the air, going up for it. Oftentimes, those backups are the ones who end up scoring the points if the disc is misread, or in situations like these, it just goes a bit too far. Unfortunately, it didn't result in a catch, but the call has been retracted.
So Wildcats will retain possession, working back with the wind at their backs. Yo with a great undercut, miles of separation, but too slow to initiate. Doesn't really get them any gain from that. He puts a bomb up of his own, a long shot.
A bit of bodying between Whitlock and Waller. Waller knowing his defender there and that he was hungry for that deep look and anticipating that space with the wheels to keep up for sure.
Mm-hmm. So Whitlock not able to keep that one in hands. Waller to initiate. Where the disc went out, so as it crossed the perimeter lines for the field, that's where it'll be brought back in. Whitlock hungry for that defense. Pick's been called.
Bit of a messy stack. So sounds like there was difficulty in the defender. The defender was facing difficulty in following the offense there. Messy stack can result in that. Centering to the middle of the field.
Rutan, who had a great performance in our showcase game last night.
Swinging to Waller, who's really been commanding the field here. Setting up plays, always a safe reset option.
In fact, we can see just how much the threat of Nick Whitlock in defense is respected as Ben Waller tries to create enough room that he can get clean options to reset that disc as we move upfield. Rutan, center field.
And we're seeing great ultimate here as you learn when you start playing, looking downfield for a few seconds, not seeing anything developing, and then just looking immediately for the swing. Right now, this defense on Wildcats' part is really effective in kind of stopping that flow again that Groot brought out in the beginning.
You can tell Groot are just hungry. They're waiting for something to open up, something long downfield.
They're also consistently kind of getting open on the open side. Something for Wildcats to note, also downfield, to be looking at taking away those options. We've got a massive sideline too. We're hearing a lot of voices as teammates are shouting to their teammates on the field about the force, about the throws that are coming off, the dangerous areas of the field. Beautiful inside out, capitalizing on that break side, followed by a
great layout grab there. Groot to tie the game one more time. 3-all. Little less than 65 minutes in, so we're 25 minutes into the game, only 6 points on the board. Some fantastic ultimate on display for you here today at Ngā Puna Y Sports Hub in beautiful Christchurch.
And these high fives are definitely putting a smile on my face. Feeling that energy from the sideline all the way over here, and the way in which Groot is lifting themselves up. You can take the experience, you can take the training, you can take the strategy, you can take that all into a tournament, but without the positivity, the energy, and the sight of, the goal of what you want. In this case, they want to win. They're lifting themselves up and they're keeping that in mind, and you can't win without that, that fourth factor there. And the positivity, the high fives, it's definitely putting a smile on my face over here.
Could not agree more. It's an absolute joy to be here to see such fantastic ultimate on display. Almost at a loss for words for just how much energy both of these teams are bringing in. And again, just a reminder for those of you at home, if you've never experienced the joy of playing ultimate, please go down, find yourself a plastic disc, or go along to Aria Discs and buy one of theirs who have helped support this tournament. Grab a disc, head down to a local park, find a local club, go on Facebook, go online, find a scrimmage, find a pickup game. Get out there and throw some plastic, pick a nice calm day. If you do manage to get down to a club event or something, get in contact with one of our local clubs. please, you'll find a whole host of players in this community who will teach you the rules, who will show you the kind of, oh my goodness, an opportunity for Groot here as Haberfield drops the pull, an automatic turnover.
You know, when you're playing at this level, you want to be catching every pull. And when you want to catch every pass and every time you go 100% to catch every pass, there is that element of human failure. You know, we're not 100%. We can't be.
There it is. Groot with a great score, just an isolation cut, locking eyes with the intended receiver, making them get into space, knowing that they can put a quick throw over. Haberfield, he's not going to be smiling after that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that agility, the ankle-breaking cuts you see here, just the jukiness as they score that point. Love that hug, that shouting. They're so keen. And while, as I was saying, these things happen. When you catch every single pull and when you're looking to catch every single pull, mistakes do happen. They do, because you can't be perfect 100% of the time, especially when it's coming down and you're already thinking of the next throw you're going to put up. And it's important to remember that, and it can be a struggle to remember that when you mess up something that's so basic, which again in Ultimate Frisbee, you do. You know, you can be the top player and you sometimes, once in a blue moon, you'll mess up in the basics. So shaking that off, you know, staying on for another point. We see the same line here, and they're going to do exactly what they just talked about. Shaking off that little wobble and going in, looking at capitalizing on that and scoring the point, throwing a wrench in the momentum that Groot has going right now.
So Groot going up by 1, 4-3. Charles Patterson with a great score, who's played for the AUUC Flood in the 2020 Mixed Ultimate Championships, a teammate of Nick Whitlock, who's currently playing as an offsider on the Wildcats team. So a little bit of intra-club competition there. Team players who have, as we've said a couple of times, played a lot of games together, but now being on opposite sides. Hoban, a great receiver, marked by Waller. Again, former Marvelous DC teammates for the mixed division, but here in the open division, bitter rivals. Mike Connolly, number 8, laser beam to the far sideline. Haberfield hoping for a shot at redemption.
And we see two players going deep. They see Haberfield as the disc, and they want that deep look. Right now, Wildcats making a lot of space, a lot of ground. Their undercuts are massive. They're not short in any way. I mean, again, the throws are pinpoint. They're coming off. Panaya, a handler, he's going deep for it.
What a grab! Not able to pull that one in, but he keeps it in hand. Great roll.
Pops up right after the action roll, which makes grabs cooler when you can action roll afterwards.
Haberfield now. Panaya looking for another opportunity. Despite the bid from the Groot defense. Keddy for Wildcats, number 20.
Panaya's he's hungry to get it again. He's feeling the fire.
Hog pulling it down over a great bid by the Groot defense.
Yeah, we're seeing bid after bid on Groot defense, also showing that, you know, Groot's not going to let them get this point easily. Hoban reeling it in the end zone. What an exciting point. Here we go. Wildcats with that same energy. Both teams running onto the field to celebrate that.
As we cross the half-hour mark, the game remains tied, 4 points apiece. Wildcats and Groot in the Opens final for the 2021 Grand Championships, the New Zealand Ultimate National Championships.
And 2 points, two notable highlights, I think, from that point. What a great catch by Hoban there. That amazing deep look, connecting with Joe Panaya, who just reeled it in right outside the end zone, as well as touching on the grind of Groot in the end zone, forcing Wildcats to slow it down, you know, not allowing them to get any easy shots off. I mean, it's always challenging with a handler like Haberfield, who has, you know, all the throws in the book. You can stop the around backhand, and he's got the inside, and you stop the inside, he's got the around backhand. It's hard to stop him from throwing to the break side, especially when he has such solid receivers downfield. But really a props to the grinding defense, the bid after bid when they were, you know, Groot was going, you know, contesting those undercuts. It can be challenging to do, to keep that grind going, and they're really doing it. They're not giving up at any point. We've got Neil with the pull.
A lot of float. You can see it moving in the wind, a little bit of shift there. Groot fielded by Mercer, coming down on offense, hoping to not concede this point. Wildcats keeping the game very tied. Despite initial early momentum established by Groot, it swings back the other way. The game so even at the moment. These are some of the best players in the country. They've made it all the way to the finals. So much experience, so much athleticism, so much energy to bring here.
And Groot really going back to the pop passes, just the quick movement that they had in the zone to start off the game. Similar to the last game with Blueberries, we saw when Nexus was throwing a zone against them, they were just waiting for the right things to open up, making the clean passes, the clean movements, and Groot playing a very similar style here. Potentially a theme, an MO of Auckland Ultimate Frisbee.
Absolutely. So Miller Mercer, far sideline, trying to chip away at it, just getting those great little passes, those couple of meter gains as they try and work through that Wildcats zone. Currently spearheaded by the mighty, the giant Tyler Hogg, supported by Nick Whitlock. Great tall players, a lot of reach there to just try and take away as much of the field as possible.
Absolutely, and even when you know that you do see gaps between those two, it can be quite intimidating to throw between them with wingspans, just between those two big people.
But the hammer goes up anyway, a little bit of catch of the wind, but it's pulled down. Groot up by 1 again.
And as I was saying before, there's been a lot of sideline chatter, and we didn't really see anyone from Wildcats down there. You know, I saw Neil, you know, he turned around after he saw that throw go up, and he almost shook his head. I'm wondering if that was a communication error between his team and him. Neil's such a dominant space in the downfield, and again, right here, finds an open player.
But again, as a deep,
Stevenson is stoked about that point.
But as a deep in that zone, you can only do as much as the information given to you will allow. And so as you point out, a little bit of lack of communication on the sideline. If Neil doesn't know there's someone behind him, there's only so much of the field he can take in, despite keeping his head on a swivel, despite playing such a threat in that deep space. If he doesn't know there's someone behind him, he doesn't know that there's a threat that he needs to take away. Groot, seeing that weakness, seeing the open receiver in the end zone, exploiting it with great disc technical skills, putting the hammer up, keeping the crowd excited, keeping everything fired up as Groot go 5-4 over the Wellington Wildcats. Less than an hour left in the game, still a race to 15.
Also potentially Neil shaking his head there because his former teammate, good mate Troy Stevenson was the one who scored the point. Massive in his wingspan and the way he plays ultimate, massive in personality, but really sneaky in getting back there without really being noticed and finding that wide open space. We've got Groot setting up for a massive upwind pull, which hangs a bit too high. And again, in windy conditions, when you keep the disc low, it's easier to slice it through the wind. But the higher the disc goes, the more likely it is to get caught by the wind. And in this case, get pushed back. Looks like Wildcats, instead of breaking it, will be taking it in an advantageous position farther down the field, a little farther than the halfway line.
So where that disc left the field is where it will come back in. As you're exactly right, Kelsey, when you talk about the impact of the wind. I think it's also important to note that the wind, typically, the speed picks up the further from the ground you get. Hobart, great reception by the Wildcats.
And I love that trust that Haverfield, he recognizes Hoban, he knows him as a player, and he puts up almost that no-look backhand around before Hoban's even in that space, allowing Hoban to accelerate and jump onto that disc. Haverfield releases it deep, looking for Connolly.
Finds him in the zone. A tied game, a closer final we could not ask for. Wellington Wildcats versus Groot. 5 points apiece, just trading backwards and forwards. These two teams clashing, two great armies from the North Island, fighting hard against one another for pride, for glory, and for the chance at a gold medal around their necks at the end of the day.
And Haverfield's just, he's showing off the precision in his throws. He can put it into space, allowing teammates like Hoban to run onto that disc, as I mentioned. And in this situation, really just dropping it onto the player in the end zone. When there's enough spacing needed, just, dropping it right onto the receiver to put another point into the basket.
Fantastic performance by both of these teams.
We've got Groot lining up to respond, and with a strong offensive point.
So Warren Buckingham, the coach, not wearing any cleats at the moment. Seems like he's taken this point off, maybe leaving it to the younger players, saving his expertise and giving them a little bit of information to support him on the line here now.
And has a lot of experience coaching. Taniwha coach, Warren's coached at the world stage. He's well known throughout Aotearoa. So passing on some of that strategy, that knowledge, that expertise on to the group players. Neil once again, disc in hand, ready to pull. Exciting game here, scores 5-5 as we're entering the 52nd minute.
So Groot with some very short initial passes. Again, that same, a pick has been called, so it looks like Wildcats are sticking to more of a person defense, but again, Neil in that handle space looking to really close off as many options as available to Ben Waller as possible.
Looks like there's a bit of a call on the fields. We've got the two giants, Whitlock and Stevenson, marking each other. A few deep looks, group players potentially cutting off deep options there for each other.
A questionable throw, but it finds the hands of Troy Stevenson anyway, who puts a long shot up. Great acceleration, trying to close. Oh! Layout grab, not enough.
But an impressive display of athleticism as he goes not just horizontally, but also vertically to reel that disc in. I think he was
what a bid.
Potentially even too high there. He jumped, you know, a bit too much vertically, and if he'd just gone more horizontally, he could have potentially held on to it. But nonetheless, an impressive play by Mercer.
Great work there. Wildcats now to work all the way back up the field. The wind at their faces, it's going to make things that a little bit harder.
Aaron Neal calmly walking the disc up, thinking about what he needs to do on the field to support his teammates, to support himself, to put another point on the scoreboard for Wildcats. Cuts setting up well before the disc is in play, giving him options. And they move it to the break side.
Great low break throw. So again, just to clarify, when Kelsey's talking about the break side, the players on the field on defense, they're trying to force only one side of the field to be thrown to, in this case, the forehand side or the near sideline. So a break throw is any throw able to work past the defense and target that far sideline at the moment. So for a right-handed player playing for the Wildcats now, the best, or probably the most consistent throw for them is going to be the forehand, as that's the one that's most available to them based on defensive positioning.
And we're seeing a lot of really great movement from the Wildcats right now. So many cuts happening, so many being set up. But also, because there's so much of this movement happening, especially downfield, I see some options being taken away as well. Potentially room for conversation on the sideline to talk about how they can cleanly allow their teammates to move into space. At the same time, it's potentially what you want to see on your team is too much energy, too much excitement about making that open cut for your teammate. Definitely better than not seeing enough action happening.
Wildcats, Robertson with the disc. Back to Neil. And again, just swinging that momentum back the other way. A great, just outside reception. Waiting for something to open up for him. A great pass through. Andrew Neil.
And Waller's hanging his head. He knows he has the speed. He knew that was going to happen. He can tell he could have had that D, but the experience, the speed, the athleticism of Aaron Neal just paying off to catch that pop pass in the end zone.
Great work there. Now that was a break for Wildcats, I believe, to take the lead for the first time in the game. Andrew Neil capping off that point with both the first and last touches on the desk that point. Great work as Wildcats go up by 1.
Potentially even, it looked like it was one of those moments where I think he maybe wished he had put a bid on the line, made a defensive play on the disc. And it's always things like that, that bid that Mercer put down in the end zone, where you think about how you could have or you did, and you were just so close. It's one of those things that, you know, it continues, it carries you to the gym. It carries you out to the fields to do those sprints, especially when you're training for opportunities like these. Definitely for me as an ultimate Frisbee player, I'm not sure about you, Blair, but for the players on this field, it's those missed opportunities that keep you grinding and working hard, knowing that, you know, next time you will make that defensive play, you will reel in that deep look, or that, you know, that huck you put downfield will be more on point, you'll have more precision.
Absolutely. There's nothing like those little moments that just stick in the mind and really incentivize you to get out and work harder, to put the hard work in the gym, on the field, with the throws, setting up a cheap net or hanging a bed sheet off the clothesline, weighting it down with a couple of bags of flour, anything to give yourself a target. Like I am always saying, if you ain't getting sweaty, you ain't getting ready. Hard work defines the kind of results that are going to be seen on the field by both of these teams.
Groot with their hands up indicating that they're ready, and Neil with a massive outside in backhand looking for the roll.
And he finds it.
Ooh.
The disc carried straight out the back of the end zone, so that will give Groot an opportunity to bring the disc, Ben Waller, to bring that disc back into the front of the zone.
Now that was because it rolled out the back. Had the Frisbee landed in the back of the end zone or come to a rolling stop at the back of the end zone, they would have had to pick up from there. But as Blair just mentioned, because it rolled all the way out of the back, we see Ben Waller walking it up to the front of the end zone.
Wow, but that still gives the Wildcats defense an opportunity to set up, going for a person defense this time. So tight coverage on that defense.
Fighting for that around look back to Waller. And Wildcats doing a really great job of shutting down that break side. Really shutting down a lot of options downfield as well. Pushing for that high release, high around backhand.
Low shot up the far sideline. Covered by Peter Hoban, but gets it through to Ben Waller anyway for a long shot up.
And it's slightly floaty, puts Haberfield in the contention. I think if he'd put that more into space and less hanging in the air, it could have reeled that in for a point. But if you're putting a hanging disc in the air and Haberfield's around, he's definitely a threat.
Again, utilizing the wind to their advantage, able to put shots up over the head of the defense, letting the wind carry them downfield. Fitzpatrick Cockram puts a big shot up. Out to no one, too much coverage from the defense, not really allowing Wildcats the space to work through and get into position. So a great territorial option there from the Wildcats, but Groot now to take possession one more time at the beginning of their end zone.
And we see players slowly walking to the Frisbee. This is can be advantageous to do, giving everyone a chance to kind of take a breather, especially during long points. If you see energy levels dropping, Waller kind of recognizing that potentially and allowing everyone to breathe for just a second. Cuts happening, setting up movement on the field before the disc is picked up.
Great run through defense.
Sneaky, yeah, coming through from behind, seeing that disc go up.
And that really is the peril, particularly as you look for those resets, trying to push the disc backwards to create space. You aren't looking downfield to where those threats are coming from. Great work by the Wildcats. 7-5, 1 point away from half. Some great breaks, taking the lead and widening it.
Yeah, what a point. I mean, Neil with the D and then the assist there.
We're gonna get to see that one more time. Campbell Jordan.
I think the defense wasn't quite set up. I mean, Haberfield just ran straight to the open side, making it the easiest pass for Neil to put up to him. Yeah, it looked like the defense hadn't quite transitioned as quickly, or maybe was confused about the force, the direction of the mark. Yeah, it's always cheeky run-throughs like that that can be concerning when you're on the disc if you want to put it right away, if the mark hasn't set yet. And in that case with Neil, he wasn't on the mark yet. It looks like that group player took the chance to just see that open pass and toss it right away. You know, and if you don't know where the players are around you or behind you, it can be disconcerting. Yeah, especially when they're an experienced player and they know where you might be looking for that reset. We've got the whole Groot team downfield taking a knee to listen to the strategy there, how they can support their teammates on the field, calling where the mark might be, where the open space is, if there's any poaches happening, to provide that active sideline support.
So now, one more time, we've seen a little bit of a change here on the Wildcats defensive line, but some great power threats here. Riley Van Turnhout, Peter Hoban again. Huge chase from Lee Yo, wanting to stop that first pass. Hoban and Yo setting up the defense to try and stop Ben Waller and Miller Mercer's march up the field. Great verticality to keep that one in hands. Nothing developing downfield. Rutan making a great undercut.
For an okie doke backhand.
And it's just so wonderful to watch the way that these Groot handlers work. One slashing up the line, trying to get a quick chip down the sideline. The other one dropping back to fill in for a great reset, luring the defense out. Just great movement. Troy Stevenson barely needing to leave the ground to get that one in possession. Off the hands.
Making his teammate leave the ground to catch that continuation pass. I was seeing that too, though, Blair, and it is really great frisbee to see, and when you have the disc too, to see so many options available for you. One handler striking open while another is giving you that around swing.
So it looks like a foul was called on that one. And so the disc will probably come back. Looks like
Robertson with the frisbee.
So uncontested. Wellington Wildcats with an opportunity to take half here. A very exciting opportunity for them, despite the fact they are working upwind. Great undercut there, so explosive.
Looks like Stevenson was potentially looking at making the bid to stop that swing, but ends up forcing the turn.
Great pressure on that defense, those long arms, able to shut down so much of the available throwing space, giving this back to Groot only meters in front of their own end zone.
Got the handler just moving, turn out with a great layup bid. Looks like he was on the line looking for a push pass.
Rutan trying to get the disc back to Waller, hoping to close off.
Swinging the length of a field, manages to fake and cause Robertson to lay out for a potential D. And cleanly into the end zone. Great
attacking cut by Ben Waller, but it's Rutan who's already found the space. Great, comfortable catch, pulling it back to a 1-point game, 7-6. Groot to come down on defense.
Yeah, I don't think Groot is quite ready to take half yet. Looks like they definitely want to take half, potentially on their own terms. And they're telling that to the Wildcats. No, we're not ready for a break, and we'll let you know when we are. Because right now, let's keep the first half going.
Absolutely. So, Groot needing a break here and then an offensive hold. We might see a Galaxy point. It really is such an exciting thing to see two teams contest so closely.
And from former Groot player Hamish Gibson has been weighing in on the side with his thoughts on the game from his teammates, talking about the style that Groot is trying to play. They're pushing their clean ultimate. They're playing in a very slick style in his terms. But they're really focusing on those clean passes, which we're seeing when they're committing to that. It's really working well in their favor, point after point. Can they generate this D and, show us some of that clean, slick ultimate frisbee to put another point on the board?
There's the big shot. Whitlock with a great chase, keeps it in hands, nearly takes out the goalpost.
I think the goalpost would have been in bad shape. The Blue Bomber powering through. He doesn't even need to take off, he's just got the wheels, he's off to the races to reel that in safely.
Great work by Nicholas Whitlock, number 4 for the Wildcats. Just some great defensive presence. He's making his name around the world at the moment, but he takes half here for the Wellington Wildcats. As we finish up the first half of our game, the 2021 New Zealand Ultimate Championships Open Finals. 8-6 over Groot. My name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kelsey Bielik.
And we will be back with you at the Puna Sports Hub in Christchurch very soon. Welcome back to the second half of the 2021 New Zealand Ultimate Championships in beautiful Puna Christchurch, the sports hub where we have had 3 fantastic days of Ultimate from both our Open and Women's division. My name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kelsey Bielik.
And we are your eyes and ears on the ground. So grateful, so privileged to be here to talk you through this fantastic game between the Wellington Wildcats and Auckland's Groot. Wellington Wildcats having just taken half by 2. It is 8-6 in a game to 15. The very best players in New Zealand Ultimate here on display for you at home.
And what an exciting match it has been, Blair. You know, Groot coming out so strongly in the beginning with such energy, such patience with their, moving the disc really fast, actually. But also awesome to see the players on Groot just rushing out with bringing the energy. Any time that Groot scored a point, or also when the Wildcats scored a point, just picking up their teammates. And we've seen that energy on the field as well. Now Wildcats, it took them a few points to respond to that energy, especially. And that competitive drive going for every disc. But their experience playing with each other, their knowledge, the big plays that Wellington is known for, and the quickness has been coming through as they have taken half and are coming out now. We see them on the field warming up their throws, especially as the wind picked up since the beginning of the game.
Absolutely. And it's great as well, I think, the the inherent competition, the competitive nature of humanity. It is always fun to put one side of something against another in friendly competition, but coupling that with the sheer joy of playing Ultimate, of throwing big, long throws to your friends, of being able to chase them down, that exhilarating competition coupled with that joy. We're all breathless here at the stadium. It's amazing how any of these players are able to muster the energy to continue running so hard, bidding so hard, making such great plays after 3 full days of Ultimate to bring them both to the finals.
Yeah, I think case in point of the running and catching the frisbee. We saw joy on Whitlock's face as he reeled in that disc from the last one. Nothing quite like throwing a massive huck or running onto it as a teammate, scoring that in as he soared around the goalpost, the blue bomber. Just a perfect example of the joy of hucking the disc, of throwing and catching, chasing plastic, which is what they're warming up to do to bring in the second half. What do you think we can see in the second half, Blair? What do you expect? Just coming out of that first one with what both teams had on display, how do you think they're going to respond? What are we going to see here?
Well, Kelsey, I think that Groot, having fired up with 2 back-to-back points, putting them on the board, putting them up 2-0 over the Wildcats, who I think might be the public favourites to win this. It's speaking with a lot of teams throughout the last few tournaments, throughout the last few months as the season has developed. The number of people who resigned themselves to the fact that it was all over once they saw what the Wildcats roster looked like, and then to find Groot put 2 points up over them, such a fantastic thing. I think Groot are going to recover that energy that we saw at the beginning of the game. They'll bring it into the second half. They're going to fight back. It's going to be such a tightly focused game.
And we're seeing just both teams on the sidelines. That's the Blueberries, the Auckland women's team who just played against Nexus in the finals. Auckland and Wellington for the women's finals, and we're seeing also Auckland, Wellington in the Opens finals. So they're both teams are hanging out here on the sideline, supporting friends, teammates, you know, that they've played with in the mixed season, that they've played against, that they've trained with regularly, providing that support. You know, I was talking a lot about the energy that Groot is bringing to the game, but you know, the people on the sidelines, as you see there in the stands as well, further lifting up, you know, lifting up those tired legs and adding, just injecting a little more energy to help them run and put on a great show for us today.
Absolutely, and we've got Auckland and Wellington representation in our final matches. Canterbury, not present in our matches, but present in the tournament overall as they put on this fantastic 3-day event for us. Our streaming has been brought to you by skysportnext in conjunction with We Are Canterbury. A huge thanks to them, without whom Kelsey and I would not have the privilege of being here to talk you through the exciting conclusion to our tournament, the second half of this game, as teams circle up just before they break half and take the field to kick things off again.
We see discs going to the sidelines, thrown to the ground outside those white lines, giving 3 meters of space for players, so just in case the disc does go out of bounds, you can still make a play on it. Or try to reel it back into the game as teams huddle up to discuss what they want in the second half, what they're trying to channel and what they're going for. And I touched on this a bit before, just before the end of the first half, with feedback from former Groot teammate Hamish Gibson, as he was talking about kind of the smooth style that they were playing. Right now, Groot is really looking at utilizing the whole team, which is something I think we definitely saw in the first half. They're really looking at making those team plays, whereas Wildcats, Groot is also known for their massive plays, but again, really focusing on utilizing the whole team, whereas Wildcats, we've seen some massive hucks go up, and with a lot of athleticism from players like Haverfield, Panaya, Neil.
Whitlock.
Absolutely. I mean, I would have to mention the whole roster, actually. Apologies to all the team, everyone on the team that I'm not mentioning, but with that depth, they're they're looking for those really big plays as well, which as a spectator is really exciting to see, but also notable, just kind of the different styles that both teams are using. Absolutely. I think also, as well, as you say, we'd have to shout out the entirety of the roster. These are some incredibly impressive teams from the Auckland and Wellington regions, respectively, putting out some great lines here. And yes, we might be highlighting some of those great plays that close out the points, the ones that give us those big dynamic highlights, but it's important to recognize that even the names that we haven't mentioned so far are still doing fantastic work, just grinding and grinding and grinding, putting everything out there, creating those opportunities, helping to generate those turns, helping to keep these two teams competitive. 8-6. Groot a mere 2 points behind.
they'll be coming down on defense.
Absolutely, we've got Waller with a disc in hand, coming out on defense, and the wind, has been helpful in some situations, but I don't think it's been really too impactful of what both teams are capable of on the field. And the only times we've really seen it making a difference is when a throw might go a little bit too farther, or if something is not entirely thought through, it's been causing a few more bobbles. So in that case, we might be seeing it a little bit more on screen, forcing errors that we wouldn't usually expect to see from the Opens players that are on the field here. Waller with the pull.
We can hear the wind whistling through the commentary booth as Puna and Haberfield start to initiate the offense. Great cuts developing downfield, but they're both sealed off by impressive and fierce Groot defense. Haberfield finds Hoban on the near sideline, marked out by Ben Waller.
Interesting to also see the way in which Wildcats are stretching the field here. They're really hungry for those deep looks. Quite a few of them happening. Yeah, like two deep cuts there. They're both looking for that deep space. Potentially less communication in how they're setting them up.
Great work, great find by Puna, setting the disc to Hoban in the midfield, who resets quickly to Neil to Haberfield.
Absolutely, and again, with such athleticism though, while certain cuts might be cut off from each other, still managing to find some beautiful open passes. Unfortunately, that backhand around, it couldn't, it was
tried to put a little bit of air bounce on it, tried to get that front lip up to get it to lift back in the wind, but it wasn't going to happen his way. Again, having the downwind at your back, having that downwind point, means that the discs typically get pushed down to the ground, so those low releases become that much more troublesome in conditions like these.
Waller shakes his head at that uncharacteristic error, and we have Neil picking up. Wildcats are set up in a vertical stack.
Well within Neil's firing range. A bit of collision there. Charles Peterson and Joe Puna.
And Hoban seemingly always open for those around looks.
The great scuba by young Mr. Whitlock. The blue bomber puts it upside down for Puna to pull down.
Joe action roll Puna, reels it in, throws a roll on the ground before again popping right back up.
Oh, we get to see that again. Mr. Consistent clearing out, finding space as Hoban finds Whitlock on that undercut, puts the scuba up, screaming Kobe. As there is the action roll, Joe Puna takes to the ground to put the point on for the Wildcats. 9-6 over the Auckland side, Groot.
And here we see both teams, taking a knee on the field, just, lending an ear to hear what's happening. What's the offensive strategy here? We're seeing the Wildcats. What's the defensive strategy? How can we echo on the sideline to talk about the force, to remind you, where you're forcing, where the mark might be looking for their throws, insides, arounds, or just, plain old open side. We see Haberfield, you see him in the corner there, with the hand next to his ear, listening for that feedback. While Groot is responding with that offensive strategy, they might be calling a string or even a pull play. We're just talking about the flow and what they're trying to focus on in breaking the defense that Wildcats is going to throw on them.
Someone from the Auckland side seems to have stolen the stadium microphone, chanting Groot, trying to get the crowd riled up, but the fire quickly dies as players are far too focused on the game to pay attention to their environment. A great pull there from the Wildcats as Groot come down on offense. Waller to Mercer with the wind at their backs, just adding that little bit extra to their throws. Stevenson goes to ground.
A great around throw, steps out. Groot also similarly in a vertical stack, a big pop pass to the break side. And Wildcats recognizing, I think, that their person defense has really been causing a lot more difficulties, a little bit more drama in Groot's offense here. So sticking with that, which I think is a smart move on their part. It appears they're stopping a few more of the inside throws, giving Groot some easier around passes. Yo, nonetheless, with a sticky defense, not letting his player get open.
Great work there. Oh, Yo with a fantastic grab and a break opportunity here. Just again, the wind starting to gust up, making it a little bit harder to put those high throws up there. The edge of the disc catching the wind. Robertson and Yo in that backfield space for Wellington Wildcats, looking to drive the offense back upfield despite great coverage from the Groot defense. Fantastic cuts. Maybe a little bit questionable in some of those direction changes. Players taking a lot of knees as opposed to making those clean changes. The shot goes up. Fitzpatrick, Cockram, and Waller edging for position, but there's the run through.
Just sneaking in there. And I think that looked like it was quite a high stall count, excuse me. Groot doing a great job of just shutting everything downfield, and Yo resorting to, you know, stall 9, getting the disc out of his hand, hucking it downfield.
And there is the timeout call by number 33, the trash man on the Wildcat side, cleaning that one up despite great, amazing offensive positioning and defensive reading on both sides. So 33 takes the disc, calls the timeout.
We have some jokes coming over the loudspeaker. An absolute veteran call. It is indeed a veteran call. You know, catching the frisbee, you know, especially if you're cleaning it up, if it was a high stall count huck and you're just cleaning it up, that your team might not be as focused as they could be in other situations to set up a clean stack and isolate someone in the end zone or run through your end zone play. So we have Andy Neal, who, you know, is not only making an extreme veteran call there and calling the timeout and setting up a play to put another point on the board, but he is also an extremely experienced veteran player. You know, lots of experience around the frisbee, older sibling to Aaron Neal, who we've seen make a lot of plays here, and talking with his teammates there, with Lachlan Robertson, to set up what they hope to be, what we expect to see, a potentially great play, and potentially another point on the board for Wildcats.
And so just to follow up with what you were saying there, Kelsey, talking about the idea of setting a play for the Wildcats, after a timeout, the offense gets to set themselves up on the field, then the defense gets set. So after a big huck like that, maybe a run through cleanup, players on the ground, using that timeout doesn't just allow everyone to catch their breath and figure out what they can do and get that focus back, as you said, but it also allows them to move to a more advantageous position to close out the point on their offense. They're so close to their offensive end zone, a point they very, very badly want, just to continue widening that gap over the Groot side. And so when you find that a lot of players may be out of position, typically for something like this, you'd want to run a vertical sack, which we can see on the field, to allow an isolation cut, giving them as much space as possible for a potentially easy score. Where the players were, they might have been a little bit scattered, and by the time they get back into that position, if a stall count is active, you can often find yourself in that same high-pressure situation that forced Yo to put it upfield and got us here in the first place.
It looks like we've got Yo here isolated, looking to catch that first point. Yo, an incredibly squirrely player. Waller, incredibly agile himself, marking him.
So the isolation cut doesn't seem to go off. There's Neal, marked by Stevenson. Back to Robertson. Yo with a little dodge jump to keep clear.
And we see this hammered down set defense, this person defense. Groot once again doing an excellent job of stopping potential open looks or potentially Wildcats.
There it is.
Just relying on the handler movement until something opens up downfield, reeling it in for another point.
Number 23, Fitzpatrick Cockram, the central surgeon, finds the hole with an incisive cut. Great work, though. Almost impossible to find, but we manage it anyway. We're going to see that again. Lucky Robertson puts the low shot up. Great cut, awareness, making sure that toe stays in bounds. Wildcats going 10 over Groot 6.
And we see high spirits walking across the field. A lot of high fives and contact. Teams that high five more, actually, statistically shown that, you know, touch each other's shoulders. The more physical contact a team has, the more camaraderie there is, the better they tend to do as a team. And great to see that Wildcats are on the same page there. You know, they're supporting each other as teammates and celebrating those points.
So once again, just as you say, Kelsey, those teams celebrating those points, both congratulating their teammates and also a little bit of congratulation of the opposition commenting on those great plays. It really defines the sport of Ultimate. We're seeing some fantastic spirit on display. Respect for oneself, respect for the opponents, respect for the rules of the game. It's nice to see those spirits remaining high, those positive attitudes remaining intact, particularly in competitive matches like this one. It's very, very easy for players to maybe get in their own heads a little bit, to let those tempers rise, but we're seeing none of that in this great final match between Wildcats and Groot.
Neil puts the disc up, and Wildcats in a comfortable situation. They're really pulling away at this point. What I'm really excited to see in this point, disc bobbles a bit as it bounces off the ground. What I'm excited to see, though, is Groot playing their clinical, sleek offense with their quick movement and their high energy. We've seen them, make movement and breaking the zone, and disc goes to the ground.
With a great opportunity for Wildcats to put one more on the board. Towed in by Lockie Robertson.
We're seeing a lot of footwork here with Fitzpatrick Cockram in the end zone for the previous point for Wildcats, just checking his feet. Here we go once again.
The classic indoor score. Jumped in, one toe to the ground.
Oh, and it looks like Robertson there, tossing the disc back, but also clarifying with the other team. Oh, I didn't mean to spike that. Apologize for that. Just tossing the disc back. He's pleased about that point.
Great work there. Wildcats now 11 to the Groot 6.
Is there, really pulling away from the tied score that we saw before. Yeah, keen to see Groot making those connections, bringing the energy. I feel like it's dropped a little bit as Wildcats has been really putting on the pressure and making those big plays and stealing away those points. So I'm keen to see, potentially some focus brought back, some energy brought back, some, big high fives, the team running onto the field regardless of scoring the points, and see Groot kind of putting the pieces together to, really come back, not let Wellington run away too far. Call me biased. I'm looking for a great game here.
Let's go, Jay!
Teams talking through their strategy before indicating that they're ready, just sussing out the offensive plays, drying off the hands in the grass. It can be an issue when they get too sweaty, when you're running a lot. Sometimes throws, they might slip in your hand. If your hands are wet, the disc can slip. So, getting a bit of dirt on them, drying them off can be helpful. Ready to catch, ready to throw the frisbee.
So Groot now on offense. Waller to Stevenson.
Massive deep fake there, huck fake.
Great pressure from that Wildcats defense. Yo, so squirrely. Shutting down his mark. Ooh, Whitlock and Stevenson.
I'm loving this matchup.
Probably two of the tallest competitive players in the Ultimate scene in New Zealand. Really great athletes, both. Great reads on the disc. The disc simultaneous catches like those favoring the offense, so Troy Stevenson able to keep it. The power slide, the rock and roll move, keeping disc in hand of Groot.
Stevenson looking for the break as it comes around there.
A floaty forehand.
Seeing it into his hands, soaring around the goalposts and right back through the middle. So pleased to have scored that point. Here we go, bringing the energy back up for Groot.
Just great work there by the Groot side, making it 11-7 against their Wellington counterparts, the Wildcats. What a beautifully floated forehand, just perfectly weighted disc. Comfortable to run on. Interesting
that forehand was the choice there, adding a bit of inside-out touch to that. But at the same time, when you have no mark and you're seeing your players streaking deep when they're open like that, you do have the opportunity to throw whatever you want, and it was a beautiful throw nonetheless to his teammate to put another point on the board. But here, cheers from the sideline from the women's teams, supporting as well, supporting their teammates.
So Groot now with the disc to come down on defense.
looks like an injured player. I'm not sure who that is on the team. Injuries can be so frustrating in the sport of Ultimate Frisbee across all sports. In taking you out, especially when you've put so much work towards the season with your teammates. At the same time, it can be quite challenging in Ultimate Frisbee, especially, you know, in this scene when everybody wants to be playing and taking time on the sideline to provide that out of the game awareness and insight can be so beneficial to a team. But when when everyone's keen to play and, you know, your own skills can be so helpful on the field, it's difficult to find people to do that. So great to see that teammate's still engaging with his team and getting involved by being able to offer that insight despite what unfortunately looks like a season-ending injury.
Absolutely, but now Wildcats, Haberfield getting every second or third touch on the disc. Aldridge making some great undercuts, finding Broughton.
Looks like Waller poaching his player a bit there, watching the deep space a bit more, very wary of those deep hucks and offering support potentially in case it does go up, especially when the hands of a bomber like Liam Haverfield.
Especially as you mentioned, how much easier the wind at the back makes it. Waller making a great bid, as you say, keeping an eye on that deep space, recognizing with wind at his back, with the throwing confidence from the Wellington Wildcats, what kind of options, what can he do to help support? And it turns out in this case, the answer is not much against the offensive powerhouse that is Peter Hoban, who's brought down so many points in this game alone. Especially
to get a D on a trailing edge. Well, I mean, it was going straight to Peter Hoban. It was coming right into his hands, but as a defender, it's trailing as you're running onto that. And to try to sneak it out of the hands as it's going towards the offense into his hands, is quite a challenge, as you mentioned, into the safe hands of Peter Hoban, but a challenging defensive play to make there. Great that Ben Waller had the foresight to kind of run onto that as well, allowing some open undercuts to provide the support deep. Potentially next time, having a play on it, generating that turnover and giving Groot another chance.
Absolutely. So the Wellington Wildcats now 5 points ahead of their Auckland counterparts, their Auckland rivals in Groot. A little less than 12 minutes left before we hit our soft cap, although at the pace Wildcats are pouring points on the board, we might hit 15 before we hear the hooter to close out this, the final match of the Open Division of the 2021 New Zealand Ultimate Championships. Wildcats to come down on defense one more time with the pull. Aaron Neal, number 55.
Spider-Man himself, known by his Marvelous DC alias.
Early touch to the ground. Miller Mercer to help with that offense. Those great pivots and fakes that we've seen from him all tournament. Just doing such great work to open up that space, to shift around the mark. Managed to get a massive break as Wildcats look to be sending down a four-person zone almost. 4 people in that cup. Possibly Lee Yo a little bit further back in that sort of middle space.
And right now, Groot having no issues. It doesn't look like Wildcats are stopping the crashes. So Groot kind of capitalizing on that, finding the spaces in the wall there.
There's the mighty hammer. The outstretched arms of Troy Stevenson, not enough to keep that one in hands. It's a great score opportunity for Groot. Fades with the wind.
You know, I'm on board with that play. Great execution, you know, to an incredibly capable receiver. If you're throwing a hammer, throwing it, Troy Stevenson is a player that, you know, is going to reel them in. At the same time, I do wonder if a backhand would have been a safer choice, potentially.
Just a casual backhand. As he sat uncontested in the end zone.
And Andy Neal breaking ankles with the undercuts there. Manages to get open with
a mighty hand block.
And Groot just walking away. His hand appears to be fine.
The kind of walk-off play, audible from here in the booth, as a dull thud echoes around Ngā Puna Y Sports Hub.
And quite tight spacing in that cup there. Players really sneaking in.
Great way to chip through that zone, finding those narrow openings and threading through them. Mercer slow with the release, trying to pull the zone towards him, knowing he can get around the giant hog.
we've got Andrew Neal this time with Hogg and Whitlock in that cup. Mercer pointing to right where he wants his teammate to be, right through the middle there. And we're seeing so much patience right now in letting the cuts open up and kind of finding the right opening. We're seeing, you know, fakes to seeing those deep looks, and not entirely sure if it's 100% the right option. And as a handler in a zone, if you're tentative about it in any way, it's safer to look for the swing instead.
Absolutely, and that's what the zone is really trying to pressure here. It's trying to pressure a lot of passes. Every pass made is an opportunity for a turnover.
Whether it's thrower error, whether it's receiver error, whether it's the winds doing its own thing with the frisbee, or your own team jumping in the way. Every pass, as you mentioned, is an opportunity for error. So right now, Groot's handlers really rising to the challenge and showing them that there's not a lot of room for error. We're going for another hammer, and second time is the charm for Troy Stevenson.
A little bit of deja vu.
What a beautiful curve. So the first time, there we go, as he laid out and it just slipped out of his hands. He's frustrated with it.
That is one of the perils as you throw down a massive point like that. The two plays look identical. And so Groot go up by 1.
Execution potentially a little bit better for that second one as it went straight into the breadbasket. And hammers, you know, as upside down throws, catching them can be just a bit more difficult than when the frisbee is flying right side up. However, you know, when it's into the breadbasket, it's definitely an easier catch to make, and a beautiful point to reel in.
So the score now 12-8. Wildcats only up by 4, 3 points away from victory. A long road ahead if Groot want to walk away with a gold medal. But we've seen that they have the throws, the athleticism, the plays, the field awareness to make it happen. They can claw it back. It's the energy that we want to see from them in the second half of the final match. 6 minutes, 40 seconds left before we hit our soft cap, before the time for the game ends. And then we conclude the point being played. We'll add 1 to the highest score. And the remaining match will be a fight to that number. Just a flat-out race.
I think you're right there. And I think right now, Groot is very capable of bringing it back, and it depends on, you know, the energy, the aggression, the competition. If they want it, I think they really could come away with it. Right now, Wildcats just showing with their experience, with their big athletic plays, with their openings on the field, as we're seeing here, is really paying off for them. But, you know, just as Groot started the game, really just with this power pushing Wildcats on their back foot, if they can bring that back and continue that going, we could see the tides change.
Absolutely. So we're seeing the Wildcats, Haberfield trying to get free for hoping to reset the disc. Just doing some great work. Even though they're focusing on those small passes at the moment, we're still seeing large backhand fakes, particularly from those big hands like Haberfield, Puna. And I think it's nice that little bit of saber rattling just to remind Groot, hey, we've got the big shots. Connolly pulls one down.
Showing that he is a spring chicken. He's capable of all those athletic plays.
Wildcats to go 13 over Groot's 8. And again, that's the key thing. Big fakes threatening that deep space, saying, hey, you better not give us even an inch because we can put anything deep. Pulling the defense into that deep space to take away those threats, and then knowing they've got those concise, controlled passes and great short movement to get everything into the hands of Connolly for the score.
And I just love the way Connolly walks off the field there. You know, teammates going wild around him, and he says, you know, this is average. This is what I'm capable of, and this is what I do regularly.
And so just again, like to point out on that replay, it was wonderful to see, even though Connolly's defense was so close at his shoulder, he had that inside line. There's no way that defender could have made a play on that disc without crossing Connolly's body, which would be a violation, would be a foul. And so fantastic positioning by the veteran Connolly to give that, despite such tight coverage on defense, to give such an open window for Haberfield to put a backhand 2 for the score as Wildcats go up by 5 over Groot's 8.
And now during this this time when teams are talking about their strategy, I also just want to touch on the setup for that. I think, interestingly, we've seen Wildcats with their handlers. They're going for the strike cuts, those up-the-line cuts, and I'm rarely seeing them going off, actually. I mean, the cuts are being made, but Groot is doing such a great job of putting pressure on those strike cuts, making them look like not viable options, or, you know, maybe they aren't at all, because we're not seeing the throwers throw to them at all, which led to the around pass and the break side movements. But just props to that strong defense and the strong handler defense that Groot is throwing.
So we're seeing that Wildcats zone one more time.
Groot with the wind at their backs, still making clean decisions, small passes to each other, just to break that zone space, not biting on those deep looks just yet. Faking a big hammer.
So still just Waller and Mercer relatively static in front of that zone.
Goodness knows the fans want to see, you know, they're faking a scoop or two. Fans want to see, you know, more of those big upside down throws. But thus far, Groot, again, keeping it safe with the clean swings, finding the open player.
A nice shot over to Troy Stevenson,
who snuck under there, I think, in a way to split Aaron Neal. They had two deep, and Troy Stevenson, by coming just a little bit closer, made him so much more of a viable option, just a little bit farther away from that deep.
Still the Wildcats zone getting into position. Waller, center field, just trying to keep that disc moving. Nothing really developing downfield. Managing to hit Troy Stevenson on that pass earlier was a really great option, but still nothing really happening. The wind picking up a little bit. We can feel it here in the booth. And so we're seeing lots of just very short but very quick passes. A lot of stability, a lot of spin on the disc, which is absolutely necessary to keep control of the disc in conditions like this.
A lot of stability, definitely. I think it's surprising right now. I mean, it's getting towards, like, it's wearing on in the game, but Groot does appear to be a different team than how they started. Stevenson streaking across, looking to score that point. But they're a lot more reserved in what they're doing. They're a lot calmer, and there's a lot less downfield movement happening. And whether that's due to tiredness or mentally or physically or both potentially, it's interesting to see how their play has changed a little bit in response to the zone.
Great thread there to find Waller.
That said, they're not making bad decisions at the moment, whereas in the beginning they were making turnovers through little bobbles, potentially moving the disc a bit too quickly for their teammates to know. Stevenson in the backfield with his arms up, like, hey, throw it big to me, I'm ready, and I'm here. But the handlers really being conservative and safe with the ways in which they're moving the disc.
Groot doing a great job maintaining possession again, just working that zone. Definitely a huge change from the play they were exhibiting in the first half of the game. Waller being sort of integral to that Groot movement, really agile, really quick off the mark.
Interesting also to see the way in which they're moving the poppers downfield. The people who are running the midfield aren't coming into the cup from behind. They're really leaving that space open for handlers. I mean, mostly the handlers are swinging. It looks like a travel may have been called.
Yeah, and that's one of the perils of someone like Miller Mercer, who has such wide and quick explosive pivots. It's very easy for him to have his back foot, his pivot foot, lifting off the ground as he's just constantly swiveling, moving around, throwing these big fakes, trying to get a bite out of the defense. Reminder that the player in possession of the disc cannot run with it. They can pivot, and they can hold on to it for a maximum of 10 seconds, kind of like a shot clock in basketball, as counted by the opposition.
Also important to note, though, that on travel calls, while it may seem like if you moved your foot a little bit, how would it really impact the throw? But when you have a big mark on you like Whitlock, dragging your foot a little bit can make the difference in actually being able to throw it around. We've got a big defensive play. It looks like there's been a call there. Great to see how cleanly it was made physically, that both bodies appear to be in good shape, but looks like there's conversation around.
Maybe the threat of moving into that space might have caused Rutan to pull back a little bit, maybe a dangerous play, something to that effect. So we'll just have that conversation. Both players exhibiting great spirit by being willing to talk about what they think happened so that they can come to hopefully an amicable conclusion.
And also, I think, noted in rules, knowledge, and use, and positive attitude and self-control, both areas in Spirit is the ability to stay calm in a tense situation.
So our soft cap has gone. Our 90 minutes on the clock has run out. We will conclude this point, add 1 to the final score, and it will be a flat race to that number. If Wellington are able to put this one away, it will remain a game to 15. If Groot put this one away, putting them on 9, it'll be a game to 14. Wildcats only 1 point away from victory.
Wow.
What a grab and a bomb! Fitzpatrick Cockram not able
Looks
to
like
toe that one in.
Are calling the disc out there. I didn't quite see what happened or where his foot might have been. Fitzpatrick Cockram was working, seeing his feet, seeing the line, working to keep it in.
Looked to me like his toe had been dragged in, but there might have been contact made with the line. The audience, the crowd cheering loudly.
Where you see? Yeah, Nexus players here cheering that it was in, while Blueberry's arguing that it was out. Both teams also on the sideline.
A little bit of intra-city rivalry here in both our Opens and Women's Final. Fitzpatrick Cockram right on the doorstep. Yo trying to initiate something, but a timeout was called. Veteran call, a timeout by the Wildcats, allowing them to quickly re-establish something. Reshaping possession. We're seeing a lot of high fives here, but the game is not over yet.
And it really is a veteran call because this is a critical moment for Wildcats. So being able to put this point on the scoreboard for them, you know, ensures a potentially much quicker, easier end with the win for them. Yeah, a veteran call to be able to set that up and be able to figure out a play that will ensure that that will happen. Meanwhile, Groot is giving them an opportunity to figure out how they might set their defense. Because the disc is in the corner here, Wildcats might be looking to swing to the middle, or they might be looking to just force it down that narrow margin. If the force is sidelined, then you know, potentially a crossfield hammer or a big round throw might be an option. But both of those are harder throws to put up with less, you know, less chance for completion. So not the easiest place to have the disc on the end zone line. We'll see what they're talking about and what they might be planning.
Yeah, so in conditions like this, when we have that wind starting to gust up, it's a little unpredictable. When you're in possession of the disc, you have 10 seconds. Fitzpatrick Cockram, he's going to be pinned down on that sideline. It makes sense for Groot to establish a trap on that sideline to really take away those centering passes that will widen the field, that will give the Wellington Wildcats an opportunity to attack all of the end zone. To take away the immediate reset, that space right behind the disc, as well as closely marking that up the line. So taking away, as you were saying, that narrow window on the near sideline. So those three are the sort of major threats there. Closing those off will force one of those big overhead shots that you can position your players to really take away and maybe leave someone spare to isolate a particular threat that you might be worried about. So in this case, someone like Troy Stevenson, he can cover a lot of ground. We've talked a little bit about the idea of a sphere of influence. His is certainly quite large. He can cover a lot of ground. He can go over the top of most of the players on the field, with the possible exception of Nick Whitlock.
And it looks like the force is a way they're forcing backhand. That Groot might be, they're setting a bit of a zone, or they're just playing poachy defense. I retract that. Looks like they're forcing sideline. Defense raising their hand, indicating that they're ready for the disc to come in.
By the looks of things, they'll be looking to isolate player in their midfield.
Once again, it's Yo who was set up, looking for that.
Attempted a greatest. So going up, securing the disc, knowing he'll be out of bounds when he touches ground, tries to let go of it. We get to see it again.
And that was great defense, reading those hips, knowing where the danger was, reaching up, but, you know, forcing him out. Also, just double checking on Yo's safety there as he slipped out of bounds.
Waller on the disc with the far sideline, trying to get bites out of Robertson, trying to shift him out of position. We need to conclude this point to tell you what our soft cap is going to be. Ben Waller's safe hands.
Fakes it deep.
Fires the long bomb. Troy Stevenson in position. Chased down by Whitlock.
Can he make it? Oh, it's a bit too far, but it takes out the cone. The fans go wild. Unfortunately, there's no outcome of the cone being taken out. Good guy, Troy Stevenson, setting it back up.
Great offensive threat, really good look, but again, having that downwind at your back can make all the difference in the world. It adds 5-10 meters to your throw, and so Waller may have wanted to float that one out and put it in space for Troy Stevenson to pick up, but it didn't come off the wind, maybe carrying it that little bit further, just outside of his reach, and despite a reasonably impressive chase there by Nick Whitlock.
I think had it been slightly softer, potentially less windier conditions, that wouldn't have carried it quite as far. Stevenson definitely would have had to play on it. And, you know, regardless of the height of your matchup, when you're putting it into a space for your fast receiver who can chase it down, it's really challenging to play defense when they have those yards on you.
Great toe drag there by Nick Whitlock to keep it in bounds, trying to shift the mark of Troy Stevenson. Fires one up. A lot of float. Too much defense by the Groot side, says not today.
Bites of the apple there, and bringing it down 1 and then 2 to ensure it hits the ground instead of staying in the hands of the Wildcat players.
Groot are going to want to close this point out for themselves, make the road to victory just that little bit easier for them.
I'm feeling a bit of picked up energy here. It's cool to see. Yeah, I think that just goes down. But cool to see them really responding to this sense of urgency. Unfortunately, not transitioning quite fast enough on defense. And sticky number 99, we see that, has scored the point.
So 14-8 in favor of Wildcats. As we may have predicted, it'll be a game to 15. Wildcats 1 break away from victory. Groot need an offensive hold and then a string of consecutive breaks if they want to claw this one away from the Wellington side. Our time here at the Puna Y Sports Hub in Christchurch is slowly but surely coming to an end. We've seen Next Affinity put a great result over the Auckland Blueberries to take the women's final. Will both trophies be heading to the capital city of New Zealand?
And with Wildcats completing their cheer, they send 7 to the line in hopes to close out the game. Groot, meanwhile, starting out on offense. If Wildcats wants to win it, wants to take this point, they're going to have to put up some strong defense first and generate a turnover. Groot, in the meantime, looking to capitalize and end it, end that streak of points here. Now is their time to turn up that energy, turn up the heat.
Now, I have on good authority that Groot coach Warren Buckingham did say to his side, hey, you guys are facing the Wildcats in pool play. Don't worry too much about it. There's nothing harder in a tournament than having to beat the same team twice. Each superpower always battling the last war. Groot, taking that advice, still managed to put one over Wildcats despite using that as an opportunity to maybe learn some of their play style, to figure out what some of their great go-to strategies are. Instead, putting 3 points up over them to go 15-12.
Neil's starting out of bounds with the disc, it appears. He's got a massive run up there just because he wants to throw that big outside in backhand.
So much float, but it goes out of bounds.
Couldn't reel it around quite enough to bring it back in. We have Ben Waller picking up, while his teammates set up in a vertical stack downfield. Mercer at the front of the stack, expecting potentially to be engaged. Oh, just setting back up as the primary reset.
Wow, so you can see Ben Waller's brought the disc back in where the disc crossed the perimeter boundary. Great work to move that disc up the near sideline by Groot. Another slip from Miller Mercer. Ankle breaking Jukes, but whose ankle are they breaking? Puts one across. Great shot there.
We're seeing the same clean, decisive movement from Groot here.
Great grab.
Keeping it alive down the break side to secure a point in the safe hands of Ben Waller. Groot is feeling that point. Celebrations running onto the field.
Great lefty forehand out. Movement into space. Low release backhand, layout grab.
And the way in which
Is that
Mercer's-
Peter Boardman, the leggy lefty?
the leggy lefty, the way in which Mercer stepped around not only horizontally, but even backwards to get around the massive mark that Van Turnhout was putting on to stop those around throws. By stepping backwards instead of around, he opened up that space to put a leading pass. That is definitely going to be in the highlight reels to result in that beautiful point.
So the Wellington Wildcats 1 point away from victory, currently on 14 against Groot's 9 to come out on offense. One hold away from victory, a necessary break here for Groot if they want to keep this game going. Connolly, Puna, Haberfield taking the field. Dan Aldrich.
And we've got Liam Haberfield discussing, you know, what the expectation is in this point, how they're going to come out on offense, what they're planning on doing. Looking focused and relaxed, ready to get started, ready to move the Frisbee. Waller with a pull. Once again, out of bounds. Joe Panaya has raised his hand, indicating that he will be bricking the Frisbee.
So again, about halfway across the width of the field, some 18 meters in front of the zone. The disc will be brought in center field.
We've got another great matchup just before this play starts that I'd like to highlight. We've got Liam Haberfield setting up a reset for Joe Panaya, and marking Haberfield is Troy Stevenson. Great to see two really good friends, but also really athletic players. We might see some great matchups in this point here.
Peter Hoban. High shot over the top from Haberfield.
Once again, Waller is eyeing up that deep space, kind of allowing those undercuts to happen. Wary of the disc going deep and his potentially helping out in that space if the disc does go up. With his closing speed, it allows him to, you know, cover ground quite quickly on the field, but he's very wary, I think, of the Wildcats putting it up and making those big, deep plays. Pick on the field, so play has stopped.
Dan Aldrich resets to Haberfield. Still marked by the big wings of the Birdman, Troy Stevenson. Gets one across. Again, Peter Hoban's like explosive cuts, just losing yards as he powers back downfield to give those resets there.
He's been dominating that underspace in this game. Really, with the initiating cuts, opening up the unders on the open and break sides. It looks like Panaya has called a foul on the mark, no contest. So the stall will be going back to 0, as you see with the hand signal there.
Charles Peterson, number 14 for Groot, trying to apply a lot of pressure, hoping to keep this game going. Haberfield on the near sideline. Shoots one through to Hoban. Aldrich streaking deep.
Looking for that deep look, hungry to catch it deep.
So quick on that turn that he loses his defender entirely. Number 11 slipping over on that great undercut by Hoban again. Connolly one more time in the red zone. Finds Haberfield. Wildcats hoping to close this one out. Broughton is the reset. Haberfield telling him to get moving.
Getting into that critical space where one, potentially two more throws could result in a point for them.
There it is.
Open side.
Panaya to Bruton. What a beautiful score. Unanswered. Great cut across to the near sideline. The crossfield shot.
Feeling the love there. The Wellington Wildcats have won the National New Zealand Ultimate Frisbee Championships.
What a fantastic result for that side as the Wellington Wildcats go up over Auckland's Groot to become our 2021 Open Championships, or champions rather, at the New Zealand Ultimate Championships.
And a fantastic performance by Groot as well, contesting so many of those plays and also offering a great show to fans. What a treat to watch and a treat to have you with us. Thank you for joining.
And so, as we close out the last day of our tournament, 15-9 Wildcats over Groot at the Puna Y Sports Hub in Christchurch. For the last time, until the next time, my name is Blair Monroe.
I'm Kelsey Bielik.
Thank you so much.